All right. Morning, Stephen.
Morning, Van. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for jumping on today, Stephen, and everybody. Welcome to our bi-weekly leadership masterclass call. And it's crazy. We did a call with some of the NCs and RCs and other owners about restocking some speakers for 2022 because surprisingly enough, it has just flown by the last. I think we've been doing this for a little under a year. I think we started last April or May, and it's crazy how many speakers and different topics we've been able to cover over that time frame, and we've already needed to restock speakers. So we have a whole new list of speakers coming your guys' way for 2022. I know we've discussed even doing owners master classes as well. So those are going to be some other ideas bounced around, and there's a lot more recruiting stuff we're going to be covering. But we are really excited about today's call, and I think it's extremely relevant for what many of us are going through. And we have a guy today, his name's Steven. He's running an office in Chicago. And if you don't know Chicago very well, it's a little bit colder than most of the country. I know there's some, Northeast cities that can compete. But we wanted to talk about, and Steven's going to talk about working in a residential environment in tougher weather conditions where, I'm here in San Diego and, people complain when there's a little bit of mist. When it drops below 50 degrees, people freak out. They call in sick. So I'm really excited for my guys to listen to, a real owner in a real market that's actually has cold weather and give some perspective on what he's doing. And Stephen, to give a little background about you, you're actually from Texas where it's not quite as cold, right?
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
Nice. And you were telling me that before the business, you were in construction. And you did that for a little bit after you graduated in 2020. And then you realized, okay, I don't want to do construction as a career. And so you applied, and the two offices you applied to were who?
It was Raphael in Alpha Elite Marketing and New Bern Excel with Richard Anderson.
So you guys heard Raphael, which you guys have heard speak many times, and then you heard Richard. And it's no coincidence. Those are two of the best recruiters in our industry. And Richard snagged, Stephen here. And Stephen, you've been opened up now on the Ready Refresh campaign in Chicago since May. So you've been open for about 8 months. And when does it start getting colder? When does the weather start getting tougher up there?
It really hit early January, and it goes through about March. But as soon as we finish that, daylight savings hits, and then we're golden. And it's beautiful weather, 85 degrees.
Yeah. And, and I'm sure even December is probably not an easier month if you compare it to most, cities across the United States. And, in our business, it's always kind of about how you handle, obstacles or negatives. And I know that you're going to talk about that today. And not only have you handled it, but you got, one of the biggest headcounts, not only on Ready Refresh, but on residential. Steven's got 28 guys in his building. So he's not only growing his business as a rookie, but he's doing it where a lot of people move away from cities like Chicago, where he's like, no, I'm going to go here and my guys are going to get tougher. My office is going to get stronger. And the people that, go through this part of the year are going to come out the other side and going to become even stronger owners. And Stephen, you're telling me that the coldest day you've had what was the number?
The wind chill was minus 16. I think it was 0 degrees or 1 degrees if you looked on the weather app.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you haven't experienced that type of day yet, or maybe you experienced something cold, you got an example of an owner who's running an office and not just running an office, running a great office, doing good sales, has a great head count, and isn't making excuses about it. And of course, everybody's dealing with different things. You got weather, you got COVID, you've got all these different things we're all juggling and dealing with. But it's great to see someone with his attitude and his mindset, not letting that be a reason why his office doesn't do well. So I'm really excited today to listen in, and hopefully you are as well. Steven's going to talk about, the mentality of dealing with different types of weather, running a residential crew. And this is for you guys as leaders, right? If you're a leader building a team, your mentality, your mental toughness is going to bleed into your team. And so you're going to be hearing from a guy who was in the field, less than a year ago, and now is running an office and is doing it and crushing it, even with different, obstacles in his way. And he's not making excuses about it. So Stephen, really excited to hear from you today. I'm going to be taking a lot of notes. And if you guys have questions, please ask. If you know that there's leaders in your office that haven't hopped on yet, shoot them a text message, send them the link, because this is going to be some really good stuff today. So Elise, if you want to bring up the slides for Stephen, and we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Van and Elise and Ken, for having me on here, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, let me see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, guys. So really overall today, I just want to discuss mentality like Van mentioned. Well, really when we're facing obstacles and obviously the weather, right? Everybody deals with weather, whether it's 120 degrees when you're in Texas or whether it's negative 20 degrees here in Chicago. So really ways to overcome those challenges and really what our actions can be and what is that really going to result into our outcome. All right. So at least I don't know if I'm supposed to click next slide here or if that's on you.
Elise is the maestro. See, there you go.
That's beautiful. All right. So guys, first off, like I said, I'm just going to discuss some of the challenges that we all go through in this business, right? So everybody deals with things such as outside influences, right? Everybody on this call, we're all leaders, right? So we all understand that outside influences is something we're never going to get around, all right? Whether that's personal at home, family members, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, kids, right? We're always going to struggle with those. They're always going to be there, all right? Rejection in the field is something that we are never going to get around unless you're that Matt guy that's in Tampa that did 84 sales in a week. All right. Maybe he can find a way to get around the rejection.
84? You said he did 84 in a week?
Yes, sir.
Wow. And that's on the Ready Refresh program?
He did that last week in Jalen's office out in Tampa. Yes,
wow.
Sir.
Unless you're him, everybody else deals with rejection.
Everybody else, yes, sir. And something obviously, guys, that we cannot control, which is the weather. All right. So on the next slide, guys, I'm really going to get into ways that we can, attack these situations and what's that going to yield as a result. All right. So focusing on the task at hand, I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan. All right. So I listened to a lot of his videos. Rest in peace. It went away way too early. And I actually, for a white elephant gift we did here in the office, a girl named Rose Perez, I got her gift. And it's a book of Kobe Bryant quotes. I've never let that book down. It's in my hand at all times. And he talked about how if you give 100% effort and action and focus into the exact task that you're doing at that exact time, over time, you are going to create so much separation between you and anybody else who's in your competition or in your field, right? So when we're dealing with outside influences, guys, I just wanted to briefly touch on this because it's something that I know I get networked with a lot. I think it's important is if we can sit down and focus when we're at work or in the field on our exact task at hand. All right. Now, whether that's when we're reading a book, when we're networking, when we're in the field, or when we're in the office running an impact, if we can give 100% focus and effort to that exact task, then at 0 point in time, do we even have the chance to think about what's going on at home, right? Or even think about the outside influences that we're dealing with. And like Kobe would talk about, it generates that separation between you and anybody else. And in this program, our goal is obviously for our clients to move into a management position, which benefits us, the client, and the future employees in that market, right? So focusing on that task just benefits everybody who is involved. So when we think about that and really use that information as fuel to push us through, opposed to a negative, tends to yield a more positive result in the training program. All right. Now, as far as the no's, right, we all get them and Ready Refresh. I don't know what everybody's program numbers are, but for us, we expect 40 no's a day for 3 yeses. All right. Now, 3 yeses a day is 18 sales a week. 18 sales a week yields $1,350 a week because Ready Refresh and the bonuses, right? So I know everybody's is different, but something that I see happen a lot of the time through the training program, it's completely normal. It's something we have eliminated here in Chicago because obviously it's cold, right? So people tell me they don't want to come outside or people get more no's or whatever it is, right? And it's something that if we focus on actually obtaining the no's, all right, we spend our time looking for the no's, then it is impossible for us to lose our attitude and handle rejection in a negative way. Right. In Chicago, guys, it's something that the entire office talks about. When we're in the car ride, we are literally juiced up saying who is going to hit 40 no's first. Right. And they make bets. I bet you cannot hit 40 no's before I do. Right. So flipping the mentality, which I actually saw and learned that from a call. Actually, when I was in Raphael's office, I had the privilege to go there when I was working with Richard for one day. And I remember them talking about like rejection as a positive. And from that day on, it switched my mentality completely. But guys, the main point of this call, what I wanted to hit on is the weather, right? I just wanted to fill those two little sneak peeks in, but the weather. All right. So for one, I think it's better when it's cold than when it's hot. Because when it's hot, you can wear like khaki shorts, just a short sleeve shirt and a ball cap. You can't take off anything else. When it's cold, all right, we wear 7 layers of jackets, a heated jacket, thermals, gloves, a beanie, and one of those face masks that like look like, it protects you from the wind. All right, you're not cold. You're not cold. All right, people say that they don't want to answer the door because it's cold. The people here, I've learned, they live here. They're used to the cold, right? So, guys, in all honesty, the whole I get networked with a lot about the weather, and in my mind, guys, it's all mentality. All right, if we focus on something we can't control, it tends to be something that just becomes a massive negative that we're never going to overcome. All right, I think it's a very simple process in order for us to avoid things such as weather here in Chicago. I know it's cold, right? So for one, going to the field with them is a priority, right? They tell me, Steven, it's cold out here. I say, I know, I'm right next, I'm down the road, right? I'm out here too, right? But also guys, the preparation, if you're a leader like you are on this call, make sure that you're preparing for your team. It's something that I learned from Ken on a call. I had the privilege to be with him. He said that they would have these, he called them go bags, I believe, that he would put in, and he would have jackets, gloves, like beanies and stuff like that for his guys in the trunk of his car, right? So what we do as leaders is we get ahead of any future negative that might come from a person, right? So us having those, I believe he called them go bags, puts us in a position where we're eliminating the negative before it even becomes a negative. Right? Because if we're leaders in this business, we understand the opportunity. It's not as if we're day one coming in thinking this is a regular job. They don't understand the opportunity we have to actually move into a management position and represent Fortune 100 and 500 clients. So for us, it's easy. We'll go deal with the cold because we understand, the end goal. But for somebody who's brand new, we have to be a genuine leader and be thinking about their opportunity as well by putting them in the best position to succeed, so they actually get to see the opportunity play out. And that starts with step 3, and that's preparation, making sure that no matter what, your people are taken care of, and then they know you always have their back. All right. But at the end of the day, guys, we can never use the cold as an excuse, because if we blame the weather for not being successful, then for the rest of our lives, the reason we weren't successful, the reason we didn't open a business, the reason we didn't get to where we wanted to be and make 6 figures is because of the weather. All right. My favorite thing, and I know you're about to cut me off, but I want to say my favorite thing I heard was they said, somebody told me, I wish I remembered who it was, but they said, Steven, if I found you 6 months ago before you started this business and told you that you could get into a management position, really help your family and everybody financially and put yourself in a great position and help a lot of people you work with and represent Fortune 100 clients. They said, does that sound good? I said, yes, sir. That sounds really good. All right. This is before you start the business. And they said, but you're never going to do any of that because it's 120 degrees outside and you have to work outside. What would you say? I said, well, I would just deal with the heat. They said, then why are you complaining about it being hot in Texas? And that mentality switch changed everything for me, which is I'm so grateful and thankful for and value a lot, because it actually put me in a position to where when we're out here, me and my team, me and my office, we never think of the weather as a negative in that way. So I'm forever grateful for, I wish I remembered to told me that.
Well, you kind of answered my question a little bit. I was just, listening to you talk. You haven't been in the business a long time, and you sound like you've been in the business a long time. You sound like you have this very mature outlook on, business, on obstacles. And I'm just kind of curious, where did that come from? Where do you feel like you learned this mentality of not to look at things as too big of a deal? Because you said you were in Texas first, where it was really hot. That's where you went to the field in the summer. And you also, as an owner, you've been in Chicago where it's hot. And then now you're dealing with the cold. And I'll get into my other question in a second, but where did that come from? Was it something you learned while going through the field? You learned in the business, or did you learn that before the business? Where do you think that comes from?
Yes, sir. And I'm grateful for both. So Richard Anderson is one of the most incredible leaders I've ever met as a human being. And the privilege of working with him every day was phenomenal. But not only Richard, I actually got to move out to California with Aaron Corral when he opened up in Riverside for Ready Refresh before he switched to the phone program. And Aaron is the one who trained me in the field from day one. He was my account manager, and helping him open that office, the amount of just overall information and leadership guidance they provided me. We stay in contact at least 5 days a week with both. I love them both. But we grew up, I lived with 5 people in a 1-bedroom, one bath house. Nice. Until the age of 14, right? And I thought it was normal. My parents, they fed us bread and butter, right? That was our dessert. Was when we got an A on an exam or a test or whatever it was back then at that age, they would toast the bread on the butter. And me and my brother thought we were just living the high life, right? We didn't know any better. And when I turned about 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that time, my dad apparently had been saving the money from loading the magazines into those 200-yard long machines. And he actually used that money, I guess, that him and his business partner saved, and they purchased the magazine company they work at, right? So from that point on, my dad started opening business after business after business. And I watched my dad forever work to the bone. And then one day it paid off. And the second it did, he worked 10 times harder. Right? I asked him why. I said, Dad, don't you work less when you own a company and make more money? At a young age, I was asking this. He said, not when you own 10 of them, son. You kind of got to go to work. So watching my dad have the opposite of the instant gratification culture that we see a lot of people have now, watching that work ethic play out, definitely gave me an opportunity to see that at a young age with the leadership of Richard and Aaron, and Julia Davis as well. I feel like I'm very grateful for the opportunity, which we all have, because everybody can network with everybody in this business, which is what drew me into it so quickly.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and to see your dad do that and go from tough times to better times, but then not resting on the laurels of some good times, wanted to continue those good times, and now you got your shot, right? You talked about preparation, and I think a lot of the times with weather, we talked about the having stuff in the trunk. Are they called you said go bags? That's so important. And I know that for a lot of you guys listening, it may not be cold, it may be rain, it may be a windy day, it may snow, it may be very hot in some parts, during certain times. But what Stephen talked about was having extra stuff in the trunk. It's super important, right? Extra umbrellas, extra gloves, extra water bottles, extra snacks, being prepared for your people, because, like Stephen said, you may be used to it. You've been in the field, you're a leader, but you're building a team of new people when they first come in. And you've got to kind of be like that big brother, big sister of saying, hey, I'm going to watch out for them. I'm going to make sure they have every little thing down until they get used to it, to make sure that that's not a reason they look at me as a leader and say, hey, you're not preparing me for success. So is there any other tips or advice you'd give on that, on what to prepare in the trunk? Like if you're leading a car ride, what are all the different things you have in your trunk, Stephen?
Well, you got to have water bottles, man. You hit it nail on the head there. You got to have water bottles, right? And then I think it's so important. Just how much is a big bag of chips at Costco that comes with all the variety? It's like $7, and you get 30 bags of chips. Just have something to drink, something to eat. But if, like he said, if it's raining, have some rain jackets and an umbrella. Maybe you buy a pack of ponchos for like 30 cents each, just to make sure they're not getting soaked wet. Right. So I think the most important thing, man, is just the food, like the water and the snack, but along with the clothing. Right. If it's cold, have a jacket. Like we got people heated jackets here. So if anybody tells me it's cold, I tell them to get promoted to leadership and get a heated jacket.
Nice. Yeah. And extra socks. You never know. People get, rainy feet, just all those different things. If I'm a leader, of course, we're all dealing with things every day, the customers, but check off all the things you can control and be more prepared. So I love that stuff. It's all really good. All right, let's move on.
All right, guys. So really, this is just the outcome of our choices. I'm not going to go into what outcomes can come from every scenario, obviously, but with the first one, obviously outside influences. All right. So that book that showed up, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and that quote that was on there about there's no such thing as a negative or a positive situation. It's one of my favorite quotes. My office is probably extremely tired of hearing it. So right now, I guarantee they're rolling their eyes. I've ran like 30 meetings on that quote, but it's treating each challenge as not an obstacle or a challenge, but a learning experience, right? So another Kobe Bryant thing, he said, most people give up after they fail at something 3 or 4 times. It's true. But what you don't think about is, say you fail at the exact same task 8 times in a row. 8 times in a row, you fail at that task. Everybody wants to give up. What we don't realize is that 9th time that we try, we are 8 times more experienced in that exact field, at that exact task, which means we have got to be 8 times more likely to succeed, right? So dealing with those outside influences, right, or whatever the challenges are, overcoming those and realizing it's so easy to put down the weights, all right, whenever you're like me and you don't work out too much after 8 or 9 girls. A lot harder for me to go 10, 11, 12. All right, so not putting down the weights, guys, using them as a learning experience every single day, and by genuinely not letting other outside circumstances affect your own growth, right? So, and then going into the nose, guys, I mean, we're all leaders here, right? So I think it's obvious, like, we can't let the nose affect us. If we do, it comes down to the concept that I'm so grateful that the account managers and my assistant manager, Clay Proctor, in this office, they've created this culture within that shows that, oh, there we are, that shows that, oh, okay. Where are we at here? I think we just went backwards.
There we go, Luis. Let's go back one.
I think no, we're on the last one more. There we go. Thank you, man.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay, Luis. No problem.
But the culture that the leaders in the office have created is that if we let no's affect us in the field, it's a personality trait, and we have to accept that, because that means that we're going to let something affect us everywhere we go. We're always going to have the fallback excuse on, well, it's not my fault, it's because of this. So the culture that I'm so grateful that the leaders in this office have created is accepting that and showing people that if you just let one random person you'll never see again in your life ruin a whole day, which in our business is a week, right? And that's a week towards an opportunity. It shows a character trait that we always try to improve on every single day by networking, reading, and just asking questions. So as a leader, you showing that stuff does not affect you, I feel like it gives you a lot of value and a high standard for the people that you're training every single day, for them to come to you for information, which is obviously way more receptive instead of us informing them all the time, right? And the weather, guys, I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of goes with the same thing as the nose. That's why I love correlating those two together. It's still outside, right? It's something that is nothing to do with you. You cannot handle the weather. You can't make it. I'm glad it's sunny today, but I couldn't make it sunny yesterday. I tried, right? So we can't control that, right? So every single day, I think the most important word on this slide right here is choices. Every day we have a choice to let the weather affect us when we wake up, to let the nose affect us when we're in the field, or whatever that may be. And I genuinely believe that if we make the choice every day to try and get better and better. Did I just get kicked off?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, my screen went away. Every single day. I'm sorry about that. It kicked me off.
Okay.
Well, we have the choice every single day, guys, to decide whether or not that's going to affect us or if it's not. And it's super important to realize that our choices matter. But that's it.
Yeah. So I have a question. So I know that for a lot of the guys, the challenge is if they're maybe taking out a day of observation, or they're taking out someone that's a brand new person. I'd be curious, what types of conversations are you having with people in the interview process, or maybe in their first day when they ask, hey, what do you do when it's 0 degrees? What do you do if it's raining? I'd be curious what you train your leaders how to handle those questions, because I'm sure they pop up. And I know you're in an area where people are used to the cold, and I'm certain certain areas are used to snow and stuff like that. But applicants will ask, hey, what do you guys do when it's super cold? And how do you train your leaders to respond to those questions?
Yes, sir. So first off is by preempting. I think it's super important for the leaders. As soon as the second round interview, or sometimes whenever they're hired, we start talking about expectations. To be honest, whenever I'm not gonna lie, it's cold. Like you keep saying, I mean, it's cold. So we have to make it very clear what the expectations are on about the weather and what we expect people to do during these times. Because what we tell them and what I have the leaders, what they always say is our client doesn't stop promoting people to management because it's wintertime. Just like in Texas, they don't stop promoting people to management when it's 120 degrees, right? And then look at construction workers, right? They're out there all day working in the snow, in the cold, right? Day and night. Mailmen don't stop delivering the mail because it's cold outside. This is something I actually, an analogy I got from Julia Davis, right? And she was telling me how it's not that the world doesn't stop when it's cold. You can use that as a reason on why we're not successful, or we can power through it because we're only 8 weeks away from 80 degrees. And then 8 weeks in this business, if you push through, the people who stuck it out through December into April, right? More than likely, if they played their cards right in our business, they're an assistant manager in a management position, right? At least going in the right direction. So really teaching them early on a very strong mentality, which some people are not always receptive to, right? But at least we get to find that out early on, opposed to it affecting the whole office.
Yeah, and I'm sure, if someone's listening, they might think, wow, Stephen he's able to overturn every objection that any applicant has, and every single person starts and every single person sticks. That's probably not the case, right, Stephen?
No,
you have people that come in and they say, wow, what a great opportunity. Stephen, you seem like such a great guy, but I really don't want to work outside in the cold. And it's kind of like, that's a part of your business, is just interviewing people, and certain people saying, hey, I just not willing to do that. And then I'm sure you have other people that say, hey, I'm willing to do it. And then they start, and then they quit because they say, no, they go home and someone says, oh my goodness, it's 7 degrees. And what are you doing? You need to get a job inside and all that stuff. So your leaders and you deal with those negatives too. How do you talk about those things? How do you teach your leaders on how to look at it when, certain people, it's just, they're not going to be able to do it? How do you talk about that?
Yes, sir. And you're definitely right. We definitely lose people just like every other office. Yes, sir. But really how we talk about that is, the way I explain it to my leaders is, if somebody can't push through the cold, a challenge of weather, then there is no way they can push through the challenges of management. Right. So we talk about all the time in our office and in the interview process, how the field is a filter, either spit somebody out or build somebody up. And we started creating the culture to where we're grateful that it's cold. Right. So that way we don't spend 5 months with somebody who maybe isn't just super the right fit, right? Meaning they don't want to put in the work, or they're not the best student, which is okay, right? Nothing against people like that. It's normal. But it's creating a culture that it's okay for people to get spit out by the field, because that's what the field is for, right? Because not everybody makes this management. Richard Anderson always, when he was teaching me first rounds, made a great analogy. And he always would say that the NFL doesn't lower their standards so there could be more NFL players. Right? Doctors didn't lower their standards when the pandemic hit so we could have more doctors. Right. So we don't lower our standards for management so we could hit our goals to hit 25 cities, whatever it is. Right. So relating that to them, sir, I think really helps with the culture in the office to explain.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I love how you said the field is a filter. And I also think it's important for anyone that's listening, if you're a leader or you're an owner, is it's not about looking down at people, right? For someone saying, hey, I can't do it. Right. You don't want to come across as a person who says, wow, you're kind of like, you're a scumbag because you don't want to go out in the field and knock on doors when it's 0 degrees. No, in fact, I go, hey, I get it. I totally get it. I think when you guys are building teams, coming across as relatable is way more important, especially in the interview process and in the early training process, rather than saying, oh, I never, the cold means nothing to me. It never affected me at all. I would say, hey, I know what you're thinking. It's 0 degrees outside. I'm sure you're thinking, wait a second, is this what we're doing today? And I thought the same thing. But once I found out that, customers answer the doors, we get plenty of sales, we're very bundled up, and we have great success. And I've seen this office have tons of promotions. It really was comforting to me for me to know that. But when I was new like you, I was thinking the same thing. And so you don't want to come across as this person who, doesn't come across relatable. And so when, I'm sure, you teach your people that, Stephen, is kind of like to have that relatability when you're interviewing people. But, it doesn't mean that everybody that you relate to is going to work, and there's going to be people who quit, and that's okay. Just like when the weather's perfect, the weather can be perfect and people will still find reasons to say, hey, it's not for me. But as you guys heard, Stephen teaches his guys that no's are good. And you got to go through a lot of no's to find your yeses. And the same thing happens when you're building teams, right? You got to go through your no's to find your yeses. So really, really valuable stuff. I love that the field is a filter. I got that written down. All right, let's move to the next slide.
I believe that is all right there for you, Mr. Van.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So guys, I have a couple questions, and I want you guys, there's so many offices that participate on this call from all over the country, from different programs, whether it's, Verizon, AT&T, Frontier, Ready Refresh, Inspire. I hope I'm not missing anybody, 5G, Assurance Wireless, Residential. If you guys have any questions about weather or field mentality or how to have conversations, please fire them in the chat. I'm going to ask a couple questions to Stephen, and then we'll wrap things up. So Stephen, for you, when you first got to Chicago, it wasn't the winter, but when you first started dealing with the winter, what were some of the initial negatives that you and your team sort of had to deal with up front, right? Because you can say, hey, we were ready for the winter, but then when it really starts hitting you, you kind of have to make adjustments, and there has to be a lot of conversations. And I'm sure you went through a phase where some people that you thought were going to be good fell off. So what was that like? Take us through those initial negatives and then what you guys did to overcome it.
Yes, sir. And very true. First off, I started, really networking out, finding out when the weather got bad. And then I was networking with owners like Julia Davis and anybody who was in the north. I call this the north, not the Midwest. I'm sorry. It snowed before Thanksgiving. It's the north.
Yeah.
But really networking to get ahead of the situation, right? And then we got the heated jackets and everything that we had with the preparation that went into knowing that the inevitable was coming, the winter was coming, getting ahead of those problems. But like you said, sir, they still hit when they came. We still had people that I thought were going to make it no matter what, and they didn't. So really the action that we took was maximizing recruiting during the time, and also the development of genuine relationships within people in the office, right? Because somebody does not get the one-on-one development from a leader or the owner of a company anywhere else on this planet. It's very difficult to find a job like that. So focusing on the relationships and the development of their growth consistently, we found that honestly taking people from not worrying about the field as much because they were so appreciative of the opportunity and the people that were here every day helping them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, that's really good. We were just listening to a call on Sunday with a young lady named Audrine, and she was saying how she networked with Dana Iverson, and the big thing she took away was how many one-on-one conversations she was having with her people, with her leaders, with her distributors, and I imagine for you, those one-on-ones and those conversations, which led to those relationships, had people build a lot of trust in you, right? And as leaders, trust is kind of the first thing we need. And if we don't have trust with people, and trust isn't given, right? It's earned. You got to earn people's trust, and you got to put in the time to earn that trust by doing those dinners and spending Sundays and having those people look at you and say, hey, this leader really cares. And now, like you said, people are more focused on the bigger picture because they believe in you as a leader, and they're not worried about, oh, it's cold today, so I'm going to quit. And we were talking to, on another call about how one office had their direct deposits got delayed by a couple of days. And because the direct deposits got delayed, like a few reps really were negative about that. And kind of the moral of the story was, why were those reps so negative where the direct deposit was only delayed from Friday to Monday because there was a delay in payroll? And if the relationships were strong, then those people, that wouldn't have been enough to push them over the edge. But it's when the relationships aren't strong, it's when people don't have a trust, then the littlest things become, the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So I 100% think that for anyone that's listening, if you're wondering, well, how do you help people overcome obstacles? Well, those relationships, those foundations, and that trust, it has people see way past the temporary obstacles in front of you. So now you're coming into, January, which is going to be this is probably the coldest stretch, right? January, February, March. or early
Yes.
March. So what are your goals now for your office moving forward? What do you guys want to accomplish over the next, 90 days as you guys go into spring?
Yes, sir. So I want Clay Proctor to be up and running. We're going to get this office to where it's better than ever before anything like that happens. We have another account manager. She's an executive director, is what we call it in the office, who's pushing a promotion to an assistant manager before management. So we want to promote at least 2 outside deals in the next 90 days. We want to have a head count of 45 people doing 350 sales.
Wow. Well, Stephen, you are a great example of what it means to, have no excuses, or, and we all have reasons for things that happen to us, but you're a guy who's shown that, you'll go to a city that most people move away from during this time of the year. And you're turning this into growth. You're turning it into promotions. You're turning it into outside deals. And, 28 guys right now for a rookie. I never had 28 guys as a rookie. So you're definitely beating me already. So we're excited to see what you got moving forward. We have a question here. When you were in the field full time, how were you consistently motivated to work full days? So maybe this is a newer leader, but what motivated you to make sure you worked full days every day, maybe even barring weather?
Okay, yeah. So absolutely. So working full days, think about it. The way I would to motivate myself is they told me that I had to learn sales. Then I had to learn how to teach people sales, and they would teach me the back end. Right? If you really simplify the business, it breaks down into those 3 categories. So they told me I had to learn sales. So every single day I was practicing my pitch. I would get there the earliest, stay the latest, because I had to learn them. And I learned them very quickly. And then I had to learn how to teach them. So I read books and asked questions and learned how to teach them. Right. And then I wanted to learn the back end so I could run a company. Right. So at the end of the day, I simplified it and realized that me being in the field longer made me better at my job, which got me out of the field faster. Right. And there's nothing wrong with the field. I genuinely enjoy it. Like I'm going today. We just opened up in malls last week. So until I get that down, I'll be there every single day of the week. So and for one, I do enjoy making money. Right. So if you're in the field for a longer amount of time, you would make more sales, which would yield more money. It shows you a better example for work ethic. Right. So for me, it definitely makes sense on why you asked that. It's just something you have to push.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs spent a lot of time in his garage.
Yeah. And you're hearing, Stephen talk about he's going to the field today. He's in the field with his guys, no matter what the weather is. He's out there showing them what's possible. And, I think like if you're a leader right now and you're looking to get promoted, the field is your craft. And, he mentioned Kobe Bryant a bunch of times. And, you got to look at the field as a skill that you've got to develop and become the master of, because the better you get at it, the better you get at teaching it, the more successful you're going to be running an office, because you're not going to be able to be in the field 24/7, selling every day, because you're recruiting and you're building your business. So you've got to be an expert teacher of the field, and you've got to be able to coach people on how to be successful at it, even when you're not with them. And I think the only way that you can become that skilled at coaching it is by becoming the best at it, to where now you have every detail down. And those full days and those full weeks, that's the standard of leadership. If you're not working full days, you're not really going to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. But I do think for anyone that maybe hits their goals early, in the day, you should be trying to break records. You should say, I'm going to annihilate the competition because I want to push myself to the next level. So, well, I know today, we give people a little bit of their day back. We've got about 18 minutes left, but we're not gonna keep people. I think your topic today, Stephen, was really, really important for where our business is, and we all know we're coming to the latter half, I would say, of the Omicron virus, and we're seeing things start to calm down a little bit, and we're getting some of that herd immunity, which is exciting, and we're crossing our fingers that there's not any crazy other variants coming up, because our business is really geared up to have an incredible 2022, and I know there's been lots of discussions as things calm down to getting our face-to-face meetings back, and regional meetings and R&Rs and stuff like that. But we really appreciate all the people who take the time on Zoom to teach us and educate us. And Stephen, really excited for you. What a fantastic story. Congrats on having a great, solid rookie year. I know it's not finished yet, but really kicking ass in an environment where most people would say, hey, I can't do it. You're a prime example of what it means to take a negative and turn it into a positive. So Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody have a great rest of your week. We will see you guys back in 2 weeks. Let's have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Van. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steven.